Hi learners, we are on Fruit of the Holy Spirit number 4, patience. A big thank you if you've been around since the first one. We talked about joy and love and peace. If you've not watched any of those, feel free to go back and watch. They are not connected in any way, so you can finish this first and then go back to watch those ones. All right, let's get into that. Before we look at a few verses, I want us to just briefly have a definition, something to guide us into what patience is. And it's simply being calm when you're waiting for an outcome, and also the ability to be very composed when there's, you're provoked. Someone has stepped on your toes, and you're just patient. You see, there's a statement that people say, "He tried my patience," or "She tried my patience." You remain very composed even when provoked by people. You look as though you are indifferent. But the real thing is that you're just patient with people. You learned how to master patience, So we'll look at 2 verses. The first one is from Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, and it says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Yeah. So we reap a harvest at the proper time. We are being trained in resilience. We're being trained in showing up, being consistent in the things that we need to do to give us that good outcome. We are being trained in being good, and at the proper time we receive the reward for it. Yeah, that's the first one. And the second one is from Genesis chapter 29, verse 20. This is when Jacob, before he got Rachel, he was given Leah, right? So the verse says, "So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her." So we see this is a guy who was provoked. Literally, he was made to take someone that he didn't love at first, and then he worked 7 more years for the sake of the one that he loved. And the word says that he did not feel anything, like he considered it like a day, It didn't seem like a long time to him because he loved this person. So remaining unprovoked even in those times of, you wish you could punch someone on the face, but you just settle down and let it be. And that is what Jacob did. I'm really sorry if you're hearing any noise outside. It just started raining. I'm recording this at night. But anyway, from our definition, we talked about remaining calm as you're waiting for an outcome. And then the other thing was being very composed even when you're provoked. And we can see these 2 verses actually touch on those 2 things of what patience is. And I'm sure we can find other ways to define it. But for our context today, those are the 2 things that I want you to have in mind as we talk about patience. Now then, after the definition, why is it important for us to be patient? The first thing is that you have more time to perfect your craft. You actually see it as an opportunity for yourself to become better at the things that you do. There's some things you can't just learn overnight. You need more time. You need consistency. You need to be showing up every day for you to perfect that thing. So with patience, you actually perfect something that you would want to pursue in the long term. The second thing is that you develop resilience, as in the midst of the pressure, in the midst of all the challenges that come your way, you find a way to navigate it because you are patient. Actually, when you look at the thing that's to come in the future, or the outcome that you're expecting, it's not a straight path to it. I'm sure there are hurdles along the way. There are bumps. There are times you'll cry, other times you just be like, I'm giving up on this thing. But the more you do it, the more you keep showing up. You develop a resilience for it, You actually are able to show up in the midst of all those challenges. And as you navigate those challenges, you actually develop new ways of doing things. That's the next point. Because the more you go through a challenge, you actually identify different ways of navigating it, and that gives you even more resources. It puts you in a better place to handle whatever comes your way, because if a similar challenge comes later, you have different ways of approaching it, of course depending on the intensity of the challenge or the time at which it shows up. So you have different ways of navigating it. The other thing that patience allows us to do is that it gives us the ability to achieve long-term goals. Some goals are very short-term. There are some goals that are maybe weekly, others are monthly, some goals are 10 years plus. Yeah, And you can only achieve those goals if you have patience. And actually, the things that we've mentioned previously add up to this point, as in, how do you achieve a long-term goal if you're not resilient? How do you navigate new ways of handling a challenge if you're not patient, So you need to have these things for you to achieve a long-term goal. The next thing is that you appreciate the growth process. As in, you look back and be like, wow, how did I achieve that? You can only appreciate that growth if you've been there long enough to see how you've managed different challenges, how you've overcome different situations. That's the only way you give a better appreciation for the growth process. And then the other thing is that you actually appreciate the reward. When that reward finally comes, you value it so much because you know the sweat, the tears that it has taken you to have that reward finally. And actually, you also appreciate other people's journey. So many times in the time that we are living in, we see people post on social media and it's as though the process was so easy for them, but they're not showing us behind the scenes. But if you go through the process yourself and actually get now to have that reward, when someone tells you what they've been through to get to where they are, you actually appreciate that process and you're like, thumbs up, good job. And you give a better clap for people because you've been through it and you know also what they have been through to achieve what they have achieved. Okay, so we've seen why patience is good or important in our growth journey. How then do we nurture it? And the first thing I would say is identifying the triggers, the things that make you impatient. Identify those things, whether it's someone saying a harsh word or someone cussing or someone, just identify those things, whether it's someone not completing a project in good time, you're supposed to meet up and then this didn't happen, all those things, identify them because you can only solve an issue if you know the root cause. So identify the triggers that make you impatient and then you're able to resolve them better. And then the other thing is to constantly remind yourself of the goal. Remember, we've said that patience allows us to achieve long-term goals, and if we don't constantly remind ourselves why that goal exists or what the goal is, we might actually lose track and become impatient and give up on the process. So we need to constantly remind ourselves, this is the reason I am doing this is why it matters to me. So keep reminding yourself that as many times as you can. Remind yourself of the goal. The other thing is to put yourself in other people's shoes. And this mostly applies to if someone does something to you, try and imagine the different situation that that person was in for them to respond how they responded to you. Probably they are going through a lot financially, or they are not in a good mental place, and that's why they reacted the way they did. And so if you think of all those scenarios in your mind, you're actually able to extend patience. You act very calmly around that person and you don't get triggered easily. The last thing I would recommend is practicing gratitude. We need to be grateful for the smallest things, because when we have that gratitude for the small things, it carries us, or rather it acts as it buffers us from seeing the things that we are not achieving. It gives us a promise for even a better thing to come. It assures us that actually, if this was possible, if I achieved this, it's possible for me to achieve something else. Those are my few recommendations. I don't know if you can hear, but the rain now is too much. I hope you've heard these things. I'll try and include the captions if it's not clear by the time I'm editing the video. But that's it. See you in the next one. Bye.